Everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Mercury in Pisces and Mercury in the 12th house. My name is Brandon. I do astrology videos here on YouTube, and this is part of a much larger series where I'm going over every single planet and every single sign and house. And this is the final week of the Pisces and 12th house videos, which is quite a bittersweet sort of video to be making, but it is such a fun series and I've enjoyed it every step of the way. And this is specifically Mercury, once again, in Pisces and Mercury in the 12th. So if you have your Mercury in Pisces, this video is for you, as well as having Mercury in the 12th house. If you don't even know if you have your Mercury in Pisces or in the 12th house, there's a link down below you can do to check out to see if you have those placements, because we are not just our sun sign, we have so many other things within our natal charts that can play into this, and Mercury is definitely a really important one within that way. And Mercury has its own sort of indications, which we'll talk about in the next portion, because this video is going to be broken up into a couple of different portions here, one of which is specifically Mercury and astrology, what that means, and then the next portion will be Mercury in Pisces, and then the final portion will be Mercury in the 12th house. And so this is going to be kind of a bittersweet video, as Mercury is the last iteration of this. It is interesting because it's actually the last placement that I have personally. So I have my Mercury in the 12th house, which I will get to that obviously in that portion. And there's a lot of different stuff to be talking about here. This is meant to be a very deep dive into these placements, and the series is meant to be a foundational kind of building blocks where you can utilize it to go through and learn your astrology so you can just be the best, most self-aware person you can with this tool. And and so if you guys have any questions about your Mercury placement, your Pisces placement, anything like that, please put it down below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. And if you guys are interested in anything with me, obviously you know where to find me. And then of course, since you know this is YouTube, please like, comment, share, subscribe. All those things are going to help me out, because it's YouTube. You know how that is. And I love doing this. This is what I love to do, is making these videos. And if you guys want to learn from me, if you guys like how I speak, there's stuff down there too. So without further ado, let's just talk about what Mercury means within astrology. We have Mercury within astrology. Mercury is the planetary body that really communicates so much. It really is the communicator. It is the mind. It is our intellect, our ability to perceive the world and tell our story. And Mercury has a lot of connection with wherever it's placed. It's going to kind of become and morph into whatever area of life it is placed by house, whatever sign it's in. It's going to have its mind and its mental kind of focus put in that space, and it's going to want to view things through the lens of the planet that sign rules. And Mercury does have a lot to do with our individual way of speaking, the way in which we understand the world, the way in which we can communicate our ideas, our opinions to other people. Has a lot to do with our nervous system as well, and our ability to regulate our mind, and just the ability of the mind to kind of play tricks on us in a lot of ways is what Mercury kind of coincides with. Mercury is one of the planets that can kind of move in between realms really easily, and it has a lot to do with our analytical mind and our ability to discern what is real, what is not. And Mercury is very, very chatty, very talkative, very communicative, very analytical, very much able to digest information, understand it, and then regurgitate it or help other people understand it. There's a lot of translation work as well with Mercury, because it rules all forms of language. All sorts of language models are mercurial. Any short distance travel, anything that engages your mind, where your mind has to be active, whether it's through learning, whether it's through driving, whether it's through reading, writing, speaking, all those things are very mental. Your mind is kind of always going anyway. So there is a sense with Mercury, no matter where it sits, that it's going to bring your mind to think in that way, or want to focus upon topics that are related to that sign that Mercury's in, as well as the house that Mercury is in its own way. And Mercury has a lot of connections. The aspects to Mercury are really important, because it can kind of show how the individual is mentally focused, and if they're mentally stressed or mentally at ease or mentally supported in a lot of ways. And Mercury can obviously be in a bunch of different signs, but in this particular video, we're talking about Mercury in Pisces, but in the 12th house portion, we can have Mercury in any sign there. And so we'll be talking a little bit more in that portion specifically about what Mercury does in certain signs in the 12th house. But Mercury, it just has such a communicative quality to it, and it really wants to speak, it wants to communicate, it wants to understand the mind and kind of know how to navigate someone's mental landscape, and how to really speak in a way that connects with somebody and translates your opinion to their opinion really well. There is a sense of trickery with the mind too, because Mercury is a little bit of a trickster energy, so it can rule thieves to some degree, more specifically in Gemini than anything else. But Mercury, it has a very much like a trickstery kind of, very much here and there and everywhere kind of quality to it, back and forth. It kind of is very fast. It's kind of hard to understand Mercury, really. It's kind of hard to keep up with Mercury in certain degrees, depending upon what your Mercury placement is, and what Mercury's doing in your chart. Now, Mercury also, it rules Gemini, so there is a natural inclination to just Gemini-like qualities, and then it also rules Virgo, which is the nighttime expression of Mercury. And then Mercury is considered to be exalted in the sign of Virgo as well as in its own sign, and there's a whole debate. If you watch my Mercury and Aquarius video, you know I've talked about that very extensively there, about why I don't believe that exaltation for Mercury is in Virgo. I think it functions very well there, but I don't think there's a level of dignity and exaltation. I think there's a level of exaltation somewhere else, more specifically in Aquarius. But dignity is this concept of the planets having their own sort of comfort or discomfort in certain signs. And so Mercury in its own sign of Gemini or in Virgo are going to be comfortable in and of themselves because they own that kind of area in traditional astrology. And then the signs opposite those, which is Sagittarius and Pisces, are where Mercury is considered to be uncomfortable or detrimented. And so there is some difficulties with that, which obviously this video is Mercury and Pisces, so we're going to be talking about that in and of itself. And then we do have Mercury. In my mind, there is an exaltation in Aquarius. I think Mercury in Aquarius has its own sort of quality to it that needs to be explored, that many astrologers are not really exploring, and that's like my own kind of qualms with that. I know some people have spoken about it, but it's a whole different thing. And then because of that, in my opinion, Mercury has fallen in Leo for its own reason. So there's some qualities there of Mercury's kind of debate of exaltation and stuff. But for the sake of this video, since Mercury is in Pisces, obviously we're not going to go too deep into the controversy of Mercury's exaltation in Aquarius, because Mercury does rule Virgo, and it is opposite that in Pisces in this particular video. So we have a lot of different conversations about that and what that means in the next portion. But rulership definitely, it definitely brings up a level of comfort or discomfort with that planetary body's energies, and with Mercury, it's the mind. And someone who has Mercury in detriment myself, it's a very interesting place for Mercury to be. It's not really, obviously it's not comfortable for its own reasons, but I'll get to that in the Mercury 12th house because that's my own Mercury. So let's move into just talking about what Mercury means in Pisces. We have Mercury in the sign of Pisces. So like I said in the previous portion, this is where Mercury is considered to be either detrimented or fallen, which is where Mercury is not really comfortable or capable of what Mercury wants to do, because it's in this very watery, nebulous, unclear, not really boundaried, sort of stable space. Pisces is this very non-etheric, non-physical space where everything kind of exists all at once. It's very illusionary, it's very foggy, confusing, unclear, and Mercury hates this. Mercury hates things that are not clear, things that are confusing, things that do not make sense, that cannot be understood by words. Now, the thing about Mercury and Pisces, much like the other Pisces videos I've done, Pisces planets have a gift. They have a gift of connection, a gift of connecting to someone's psyche, someone's subconscious, someone's inner workings, someone's inner mind, in a way that can be extremely overwhelming for the person that has it, being Mercury in Pisces, but it allows them to really, really help guide through people's psyche and through things people can't see. And so Mercury in Pisces makes for phenomenal, amazing musicians, as well as very strong psychics, very strong intuitives, very strong artists, because they're utilizing a medium that is not necessarily grounded in reality or is connected to something higher in some way, shape, or form to communicate themselves. So you'll see a lot of people with Mercury in Pisces that will have this innate ability to communicate in ways that are not words, because there's a sense of nonverbal communication that is really strong with this one. And there's a certain sense of subtlety that Mercury really can bring to Mercury in Pisces, where it's going to force the individual to really communicate in a way that is confusing. And they will be quite confused. They will be quite misinterpreted and not really understood, which is probably why Mercury does not do well here, because Pisces is all about things that are projected upon us, that are brought to us, that are just kind of not making much sense. We imprint ideas onto them. We put expectations onto them. And Mercury is the mind. Mercury wants things to make sense. And when we're in a space where we're speaking about something and someone's misinterpreting us, someone thinks we're lying, someone thinks that we're not making any sense, that we're not talking in a way that's grounded in reality, they're going to project their own ideas onto us of what it is that we're trying to say, what it is that we're trying to get across, how we're trying to do it, what our interpretation of the information being presented to us is. And this can be very difficult for Mercury, because Mercury wants things to make sense. It wants to get its point across. And in Pisces, that's really, really hard, because it is so swayed by the subtle energies of an environment, of a person, in so many different ways. And that's why I think with Mercury Pisces, it's really, in Pisces placements in general, there's a level of subtlety that is required of Pisces placements, of learning how to work with subtlety, because what ends up happening with Pisces placements is they're so sensitive to their environment, to the people within them, to their energies, their own emotions, all of the things. They're very, very sensitive. And over time, what happens with Pisces placements and 12th house placements as well is they get this level of overwhelm, because they're being kind of pushed and prodded in a way that isn't really clear or linear in any way, shape, or form, and they are lost. They're meant to be lost. They're meant to wander into some way and lose themselves to just overwhelm, just getting tossed into a wave and tossed into the ocean and just getting lost in that process. And the thing is as they go through their life, and I talked about this a lot with I think it was the Mars video that I talked about this the most, but there's a sense of being kind of hit with energetic waves, energetic impulses, subtleties, subtle energies, from everyone, everywhere, all at once, right? And not knowing how to discern what is yours, what is someone else's, where those thoughts are coming from, what you're hearing. So you'll see Mercury Pisces, Mercury 12th house, have like a very difficult relationship with their mental health, typically, because they are energetically overwhelmed by things that they can't discern as theirs or not. They're connected to the collective subconscious, right? And putting the planet of the mind in the collective subconscious, and the thoughts, the kind of trash can of everybody else's thoughts and things that you can't see but you're subtly aware of. If you don't know you're aware of those things, if you don't know that those things are going on and you can't put words to them, you are going to be overwhelmed. You are going to have thoughts that are not your own. You're going to have things that you're saying and sensing and feeling that are not your own, that are connected to something higher, something different. That's why Mercury Pisces can have a great ability of art and communicating through art, because they're connected to something that everyone knows is there. Pisces is all of these things that we all know exist. We all know they're there, and we can touch them in little moments of time. But I think the reason why Mercury and Pisces placements in general are so artistic is because Mercury specifically wants to completely communicate through that medium. And the only way in which to do that really is typically music or dance or art in general, because it allows you to be connected to that divinity. And so your mind is always connected to both the trash can of the collective, relative to the collective subconscious that Pisces represents, or connected to divinity, connected to flow, connected to something higher. And what will happen typically is you'll get connected to the trash can of everyone else's stuff for so long until you end up purifying yourself, understanding where your voice is, understanding what voice is yours and is the environmental or personal influences around you or energetic influences that are subtle, and knowing how to communicate to yourself and how to keep yourself in a sense of groundedness, in a sense of reality, because Mercury and Pisces can get very, very, very lost in things that we don't really know why they're there, right? Mercury and Pisces can be amazing intuitives, amazing mediums in specific, because they are very much attuned to an energy that is subtly there, that once again we all know exists, and we can all kind of sense it, but they're more mentally attuned to that, and they're meant to be able to communicate with those subtleties in that way. Their minds are so enigmatic, so unique, so deep in ways that they can get lost in visions and in imagination. Their imagination is so rich. And I think that's the thing with Mercury and Pisces. It doesn't know what's imagined and what's real, and at one point or the other, it's going to have to discern that. It's going to have to go into mediumship, spirituality, things that are in some way touching divinity for a moment, go into those things and then come back and communicate that. It is the messenger after all. So being a messenger in spiritual spaces, being a messenger in mental health, in spaces of subtle energies is very difficult, because to be attuned to those more sensitive, difficult, overwhelming energies, you have to allow yourself to be overwhelmed by them, to get lost into them, to lose your sense of your own mind and your own perspective into these things. That's why you'll see Mercury and Pisces really struggle with their ability to discern what their reality is, what is truth, what are they feeling, what are they sensing. This is Pisces placements in general once again, but Mercury here is really about the messaging within that and being able to communicate that to themselves, more importantly than anything else, but then eventually to other people. And to communicate to yourself, you have to have a high level of discernment, and that is what Mercury really craves. Because although Mercury is in Pisces and it's not really comfortable here in many ways, the opposite of that is Virgo, where it's very, very comfortable and it's capable of doing a lot of high level of thought and groundedness. So there is an importance with Mercury and Pisces to be able to ground your mind, ground your opinion, ground your thoughts, ground what it is that you are sensing, you're seeing, you're feeling, find ways to put words to all of which you're experiencing so that you can ultimately be the messenger for healing, be the messenger for others to help them through their own journey. And this is why you'll see Mercury and Pisces be amazing tarot card readers, amazing astrologers, specifically mediums more than anything, psychics, and any sort of intuitive thing where you are utilizing a language model to connect to subtle energies. And it can, once again, Mercury and Pisces can be amazing artists and communicate some really profound things through their art and through nonverbal. They can also be great for learning how to speak with unspoken entities. And this doesn't just, and I say entities, but there's so many different words within that, which is so Mercury 12th house. But like there's a sense of being able to communicate with, not just mediums, meaning like, souls that have passed on, but, animals or plants or crystals or cards or spirit guides or angels or any of those things. There's a level of communication with subtleties that is really, really, really powerful. Communication with gods in some way. There's a sense of communing with divinity here. Like there is very much a sense of conversation between themselves and God. or some form of divinity. But the thing with Mercury and Pisces, it can be very much easily deceived, easily lied to on what is truth, what is not. And so I think it's really difficult with Mercury and Pisces to be able to know what their mind is. And that's why I think it's really important to have solitude, so you can discern what is your reality, what is not. Have spaces in which you are the only energy that is around you, and you can go within your own mind, within your own psyche, within your own energy, and figure out what that truth is, figure out what it is that you are truly here to communicate. And like I said, there's so much power in this one, but it's really difficult to harness because Pisces placements are always going to have to experience a sense of dissolving in some way, experience a sense of eroding of their mind. And I think it's hard with Mercury and Pisces, especially if they ever got involved with any sort of drugs or anything that alters our consciousness to connect to divinity or connect to something that feels close to divinity or artificially connect to divinity or spirit or whatever it might be. There's a very profound gift with Mercury and Pisces, but there is... with that gift comes a lot. It only comes because you were overwhelmed with things that you might not even realize were meant to break you and break your mind and kind of push your mind in ways that it wouldn't understand, to reclaim it, right? There's a level of mental reclamation that happens with any planet in Pisces is about to be reclaimed. But it can also get very lost, and that time frame of being lost can last for a very long time, if they don't allow themselves to change their perspective, to change their mindset, to shift their mind in a more positive approach and find the beauty in the subtlety and the ways in which the universe is kind of winking at them and helping them kind of walk down their path in a way that guides them towards the next truth, towards the next answer, towards the next piece of gold that they needed to help them understand their story. Mercury in Pisces is such a confusing placement, and it's supposed to be confused. And the thing about confusion is it's something that we all have experienced. And when it comes to Mercury Pisces, they almost will go further into confusion. They will go further into that and lose themselves further into that because they think that's the right thing to do to get out of it. And in some ways it can be, but in most ways it's not. Because Mercury in Pisces, it wants to lose its mind, essentially. It wants to lose its ability to communicate or use its ability to communicate clearly. And by doing that, it overwhelms itself. It drowns itself in alcohol to some degree and things that kind of shut out that subtlety of energetic kind of sensitivity that happens with Pisces Mercury, because they can drown themselves in the thoughts of others, in the feelings of others, in the vibes of others, and they can't put the words to it, which I think is such a difficult thing for Mercury and Pisces. They can't explain to others all the time or as easily what it is that they're feeling, why they're feeling that way, what it is that they're seeing, that they're sensing, why they're seeing and sensing these things. It's a very difficult placement to have, because if they're not giving themselves boundaries, giving themselves spiritual kind of guidance, or if they don't have someone to go into that confusion with them and help them kind of unravel it and play with their psyche in a way, but in a way that is healing and helping, they're gonna get more lost and more confused. And there's a sense of deceiving of their own mind, or deception within their own mind, which can be very hard for the psyche to comprehend, to work with. But it allows for, once again, with the assumption that the healing is done or has been done or is worked on, there's a sense of communicating blessings to people, communicating healing to people, helping people through really dark, difficult, confusing times, because you have been beyond confused to the level of where they're at. And that's where I think Mercury Pisces has a gift, because it allows itself to subtly see, once again, the energetics of someone else and what they're dealing with within their psyche, and be able to connect it to their own spiritual tools or their own tools of discernment to help someone navigate their psyche. This could be great for therapists in some way, because it allows for their voice to be used to help navigate through someone's energy, and attach to it and absorb it, but then also discern it. And really, Mercury in the 12th as well, and I have this placement, so I'll explain this in a moment, but Mercury in the 12th and Mercury in Pisces, they have this gift of being able to, once again, sense the subtleties in conversation, in a way that is a massive, massive gift when it's attuned after time, after they've gone through their Pisces 12th house moment of losing their mind. But it allows them to really, really be so subtly aware that they know the reason as to why that person is telling them that message. But more importantly, in a weird mirrored way, why that person is telling you that message, and translating it for that person to help them understand why they're saying that to you. It's a very, very, very complex kind of mirroring here with Mercury in the 12th and Mercury in Pisces, but there's an aspect of this one that is so much about translation, and it's translating very subtle energies, and it's translating art, it's translating, beauty. Like there's a sense of Pisces that is so artistic, and it's a lens in which a lot of artists see their world through, is through a Piscean Neptune lens. But the thing about Mercury and Pisces, it's so, for me specifically, even though I have Mercury in the 12th, it's so hard for me to see the world through that lens, because it would overwhelm me. It would very much overwhelm me in so many different ways, to see, life as beautiful and colorful, and the subtleties of art and light and color and nuance that is so beautiful and so important. And there's a level of, there's a gift within that with Mercury in the sign of Pisces, because it allows for you to see the world through a way that no one else can, but they all know can exist. And then when you learn how to translate that, when you learn how to translate the subtleties of energies, man, there's a gift there. There's a real gift there. There's a real ability there that I think no other sign can bring. And it can bring so much healing to people. It can help, like art therapists are huge in this, being able to help someone create art through their mind, through the act of flow. Music and art therapy can be amazing for these people. Partaking in it would be amazing as well. Any sort of way in which there is an interpretive quality to the words. I mean, astrology is definitely an aspect of that, but I'm speaking more in the way of, like, once again, like art therapy, music therapy. There's an aspect of this as well with Mercury in Pisces and the 12th house, where there's a very like video game therapy. There's this very interesting quality of the subconscious mind that Mercury brings in the 12th and in Pisces. And when I think about this, especially more so Mercury in Pisces than anything, and Mercury in Leo to some degree, there's a level of their subconscious that they are able to communicate about. So thinking about video games, right? There's certain video games, there's a whole realm of this, and I'm sure it's studied, but there's a whole realm of video game psychology and the subtleties of what attracts you to a video game, what attracts you to a certain form of media, and doing psychoanalysis of people based off of what video games they are interested in, how they play those video games, how their personality is brought into those video games, more specifically video games that allow them to create their character in some way. There's a level of immense projection, and Mercury here really wants you to be aware of that projection, and aware of that kind of difference, but also immerse yourself in it. So there's a lot of power here, and Mercury in Pisces can also have a great ability for media and poetry, spoken word in a lot of ways, but there's a subtlety here where they can get really involved in symbolism and mass media in a way that they lose the message, but they're also seeing messages and seeing media, and it's really, really interesting. And they'll see flashes of imagery in their mind, or TV shows or movies or pop culture references as well, because their mind is all just symbols, and they're very much connected to their subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is a very, very complex system in which, as a Mercury 12th house, I've had to learn, and I'll get to that in the Mercury 12th house portion, but the subconscious mind is a very, very, very complex system. And with Mercury in Pisces, it really is, because it is connected to the collective subconscious. It's meant to learn how to understand that, but to do that, it must really lose itself or lose part of itself to that system. And that's where, like, you'll see overwhelmed with symbols, overwhelmed with, imagery and voices and things that the normal, society would say, this is extreme mental illness. But there's not, and this is true just because of the way in which the world is, there's not any, as it relates right now, there's not much support for people that are like that. That there may be a level of connection to divinity or connection to energetics that we are not aware of. And in ancient cultures and in some cultures around the world, there's a level of sacrilegious kind of response to people that are going through that, where some cultures speak on how when someone goes through a mental health crisis and they're hearing things or seeing things, it can almost be a shamanic initiation in some ways. And there's many cultures that kind of, mainly Eastern cultures, that really speak to that and really try and understand how and what someone is subtly kind of trying to communicate. And it's very much something that the Mercury and Pisces, Mercury 12th housers are kind of meant to kind of communicate and work in that realm, and it can be very hard to navigate how to communicate in those spaces. And like I said, when I get to Mercury in the 12th house, I'll explain to you my story, because there's a lot there. But there's a lot of subtlety that Mercury and Pisces is meant to be aware of, and they will be. And it's about how they communicate that. And it's about, once again, the subconscious and how they can fall into the subconscious, fall into a form of media that allows them to project themselves out, and then analyze that so they can kind of get that feedback. It's a very unique placement, and that's why art, music, video games, anything that is a projection and a world building kind of world or art therapy, music therapy, there's a lot of support there. But ultimately, it's about your mind being able to guide you into spaces that are foreign, that are unknown, that are confusing. And that is, the mind does not like that. The subconscious brain does not like that. It speaks in that way, so it does communicate in that way. But it does not like, the conscious brain does not like being brought into that, because then it's trying to explain what's happening and trying to explain what you're feeling and seeing and sensing. And Pisces is just getting overwhelmed with things in a lot of ways, and it's almost like getting brought into a stream of water, and as soon as someone tries to imprint another question on you or ask you something, it pushes the wave in a different direction, it pushes you somewhere else, it overwhelms you in a different direction. And so there's a level of seeing things, hearing things that are very different from the average person in a lot of ways. And it's about how you can communicate that, how you can find ways in which you can speak to that. And there's a lot of power with Mercury in Pisces, but it's about how you really trust that and learning how to trust that, learning how to build your faith. Obviously, look to your Mercury ruler. So in this example, it's going to be Jupiter. Look to Jupiter, see what that's happening with. If you are Mercury in Pisces and you also happen to have your Pluto square to that, there's a lot of deeper sort of things involved with this particular placement, if that's the case. If you're like a Gen Z. And I think with Mercury and Pisces as well, like I said, the Jupiter aspect really is about what you believe in, what your faith is. And so utilizing that to inform your mind and inform your what you want to talk about, right? Mercury, I have Mercury in Sag, and it's the other Jupiter ruled sign, and it's very much a very large kind of qualities of conversation, large topics, obviously large amount of content, right? Talking for immense amount of time because everything feels large and important. And so it's about having a sense of speaking about something that you believe is important. And with Mercury Pisces, it's really hard to discern what that is, but there will be a subtlety that will feel right to you once you know and follow that little breadcrumbs of gold in a way that spirit is telling you of, like, this is what I need to communicate, this is how I need to communicate it. And it's kind of taking you step by step to communicate what you really care about, what you really believe is what is right in that moment. And being able to be okay with being wrong, as well as a very much a Mercury Pisces thing. Being able to understand that there's an interpretation quality to what you're saying that needs to be worked through as well. But the sooner you learn how to interpret what someone else is saying to you and then respond with an awareness of separateness, I think is what's really going to help you. And there's a level of subtlety that I think is so strong in this one. And that's why I think Mercury can, with this level of precision, because Mercury wants that precision, it can be very, very, very intelligent, but intelligent in a way that is beyond normal comprehension, meaning that talking about spirit guides, having these kind of esoteric kind of imagery, hearing people's deceased loved ones, mediumship, stuff like that is very Mercury Pisces. And there's a sense of feeling what is true, feeling what is the highest connection to divinity, and knowing how to discern that over time. That's something that Mercury does really well. It wants to discern, it wants to make use of the information that it's being given, and it's going to be really overwhelming, the amount of information that you're given with Mercury and Pisces, but how you utilize that for art, healing, helping yourself and others is really what's most important. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say for that with Mercury and Pisces. There's a lot within that, obviously, but obviously I could talk about this more, but there's so much here. And so I am going to talk about specifically what Mercury means in the 12th house, because there's some qualities in that I think are really important to bring up, both because I have this placement and also because there's a lot of qualities when it's in the 12th that are different than it just being in Pisces. So, yeah, so see, as the next part, we talk about Mercury and Pisces. Before I do that, if you guys have Mercury in the 12th house, see, my Mercury 12th house things are doing the thing. But if you have your Mercury in Pisces, I'd love to hear your story about how this has been for you, how this video landed, how you interpreted it, what the story has been like for you with Mercury and Pisces. And then also, too, if you are ruled by Mercury, so if you're a Gemini or Virgo rising, there's a lot of power in this placement because it holds a lot of importance for you, as well as if you have, like, prominent, like a Gemini moon, Virgo moon, those sorts of things. You're not going to have a Gemini or Virgo sun with this placement here, but if you have like a big 3 or any other placements that are in Gemini, there's a definite importance of understanding your Pisces Mercury in that way. But yeah, and if you guys are interested in anything with me, if you like how I speak, a fellow Mercury 12th houser type of person, feel free to reach out to me down below. There's some stuff down there. Yeah, I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you guys in the next part where we'll be talking about specifically Mercury in the 12th house. We have Mercury in the 12th house. So Mercury in the 12th house, I want to obviously say this, I said this earlier, but this is my placement. So I have Mercury in the 12th house in Sagittarius. So I'm going to have a little bit of biases with these. I just want to let you know that I have my own experience I'm going to be bringing to this particular portion, as I've done with the other portions relative to my own astrology chart, because as much as astrologers speak on objectivity and all of those things, and there is a level of importance of objectivity with this, there's a lot of value in providing subjective kind of experiences like I have gone through. So when we put Mercury in the 12th house, this is a very difficult place for Mercury to be, for obvious reasons, because Mercury does not like being in the 12th house. However, like I had said in the previous portion, Mercury in Pisces, there's a level of subtlety that Mercury really is learning to communicate through. In the 12th house, it is all about seclusion, isolation, privacy, things that are behind the scenes. There's very much stuff that is hidden that you're communicating about, secrets and things that most people are not privy to. You will find them. They will find you. You will find that information. You will get secrets. You will get people's dirty laundry. You will get people's drama, and their deepest, darkest secrets are going to kind of be given to you in some way. Mercury is very much trying to communicate about subtleties, about things that are hidden, right? And Mercury is literally the communicator. So it's like, okay, I want to talk about this stuff. Let's talk about this stuff. Let's talk about what we don't talk about. What's under the surface, what's there but no one agrees is important enough to talk about, right? Mercury here does have communication with spirit pretty commonly. It has a lot of conversations around mental health, around talking about around mental health, around things that are foreign. Foreign languages can be really prominent for Mercury in the 12th house as well as myself, but I have Mercury in Sag. There's a different other quality to that. There's a level of just merging with things from a mental level. So there's a lot of music sensitivity here. There's a lot of language sensitivity here. There's a lot of obviously mental health sensitivity, being able to discern what is your reality, what is not your reality, being able to communicate those things. There's a level of strong pattern recognition here, because pattern recognition can be very, very subtle with Mercury in the 12th house. There can be this very strong ability to work in specifically jails, hospitals, mental health spaces that are private, that are not really allowed for most people, places that are not really talked about, or things that are not really talked about. Once again, there's a mind here that is focused upon secrets, unseen things. There's a level of just spiritual guidance that their mind is kind of forced to go through. Now, Mercury is going to play differently in different signs in that 12th house, but there is also a sense of idealization with your words as well. 12th house planets, all of them have this level of projection to them, or put upon them rather, where Mercury really is about your mind, your opinions, your voice. So people can think that you're much smarter than you actually are, or they can think you're much dumber than you actually are as well. I've gotten both in my own life. And they can misjudge your level of intellect, and they can misjudge and confuse what you're trying to say. And there's definitely communication issues with Mercury in the 12th house. And they're more subtle, they're more hidden from you, because once again, the 12th house is all things hidden from you, things that you're kind of bringing from behind you in some way, bringing from your past that are unresolved in some way, but gifts as well. There's a level of your mind is a gift to give to others. Your words are a gift to give to others, and to their spirits and to their collective. Once again, there's a level of visions and very connecting to divinity that happens with Mercury here in the 12th house. The mind is wanting to touch those things and then communicate how that touch with divinity, or that visitation from spirit or from their loved one or from someone else's loved one, there's a way of learning how to communicate in that regard. There's a sense of communicating with, once again, communing with God, which I have done on multiple occasions in my own life, and having conversations with God and subtle ways that the universe kind of speaks to you. Once again, Mercury really wants to understand that. And in the 12th house, it can definitely, at some point, have a level of mutedness to it, where you feel like you can't speak, or you feel like you're not... there's a level of like, you can't, like you're used to not being heard. There's a level of being unheard, being misunderstood, not being heard is really common for Mercury in the 12th, as I have it as well. It's something I have had in my life, where I'm actually shocked that people listen to me in some ways. But there's a lot of like really prominent speaking ability with Mercury in the 12th, but that is something that you're not really aware of sometimes when it comes to communication. You're communicating something that you don't know is there, and you're subtly aware of it, and you're trying to figure it out and communicate to people, and it just gets misinterpreted, just gets confused. Mercury can get very confusing here. It can have a sense of not knowing why it's saying what it's saying, and for me, Mercury in the 12th, that's a lot of what I do when I do readings. But not in a bad way. Like, I know where it's going. I can sense where it's going. Once again, this level of sensing, of subtlety that Mercury does in the 12th, where it guides you through some subtle energies, some trusting of the message that is coming through. And that's something that I think I've done many times throughout my life where I have had immense faith in what I'm trying to say, and the intention in which I'm trying to heal someone or help someone with my words and my guidance. And it can become something that I remember very early on when I was first getting into this. I remember I would have these late night conversations with people about whatever. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I remember this morning after, one of my friends had come up to me and he said, "Can you remind me what you said? Because what you said last night was really profound." And I said, "I don't remember what I said. It just came through me," right? Mercury in the 12th, it's almost like you're meant to use your voice as a vessel for some message. You are very much the messenger in a lot of ways of things people don't see. And there's a level of subtlety that you are so aware of, that at that moment, I remember I was like, oh, okay. So, and it just kept happening. It kept happening where there are many times that people have wanted to grasp the things that I have said and remember those things. So for me, that's part of the reason why I record every single reading that I do, obviously, but I also voice record every single thing that I do, because I do a lot of speaking for a living. That's literally what I do across the board. And it's something that speaking is very, very important to Mercury 12th housers. And it's a very big gift, but it's once again trusting that gift, right? With Mercury in the 12th as well, there's a level of if I lose my voice, I'm done. Like I can't really do much of anything with that. There's a loss of communicative ability that is so important for Mercury 12th housers, and Mercury in general just needs to be able to communicate something. And so there's a level of subtlety with their communication they need to learn how to do as well. And like I said, ever since I found out that my words kind of just are forever a message in that point in time, and I don't communicate, nor do I think in a very linear or normal way. That's also because in my particular chart, I have my Mercury out of bounds in the 12th house and in mutual reception to my Jupiter in Virgo. So there's a lot of very strong, my Mercury it kind of does its own thing in my particular case in the 12th house. And it has a lot of activity going on. It kind of pushes the limits of my mind in a lot of ways, and it has pushed the imagery and shown me visions, shown me things, spoke to me in ways that I have not really understood at that time, but understood later on. And a lot of my Mercury 12th house journey has been me speaking through my subconscious, speaking through my mind, and meaning like understanding that the subconscious is always running the show when you do anything, but especially with Mercury in the 12th, it's very much the awareness of the subconscious. And then for me, how that comes across is I will be speaking with the awareness that what is coming up is from my subconscious, from a part of me that I'm working through, that I'm healing through. And in that process of speaking something out and hearing my own voice and understanding what I'm trying to say and getting to that point and putting together all these pieces as disjointed as they may be, it creates healing. It creates a very cohesive, very large project, very large thought in a lot of ways, and it's very much interconnected. And my mind is very much a very strong mind with Mercury in the 12th house, but also once again, it's very, very Jupiter. It's very large, and there's a lot of context that I'm kind of exploring within my own mind when I speak on things. But there is a sense of, once again, channeling that kind of happens, where I just trust the messages coming through me. And that's kind of how I've had to do that for years, for 14, 15 years at this point, well over that, because I've just learned that my intention is most important. And if I keep my mind sharp in some way, or try and specifically focus on how to communicate something, as opposed to just trusting through just the mere experience of consistently communicating and learning to grow as a human. It's something that I've gotten much better at, just trusting the message that comes out, trusting how I'm communicating it, and making sure that I am as understood as I can be. And that's why I think for me specifically, I have a much more, that Jupiter Virgo really helps my situation with helping me really know how to communicate in a very digestible way. I do a lot of self-editing. I'm very much watching my communication in a lot of ways. And even then, it still gets confusing. And I'm sure this video is probably really confusing at this point because I've been talking about my own Mercury placement for the past 10 minutes. So I should probably get on it and talk about the Mercury in its own signs. So like I said, Mercury in the 12th house is a lot of just getting lost in things, getting lost in minds, as I just did for 10 minutes, as I did with this entire series here that I've been doing, where I just talk about everything relative to that kind of central point of Mercury in the 12th house. And for me, it's my own Mercury. So of course, my own Mercury is going to talk about itself because that's what it does. It likes to talk, and it likes to communicate, and it likes to do it almost to excess, and doesn't know those limits in a lot of ways. So that's some issue that I have, that you can clock me for it. It's fine. I get it. I'm clocking myself for it right now. So I get it. For those of you that are annoyed with me, I'm sorry. I like to talk. I'm well-intentioned. People like to listen. I also like to hear myself talk. It's very Mercury 12th housey thing. So there's that. Now, Mercury in certain signs is going to play very differently. So we have Mercury in Martial world signs, so in Aries or Scorpio in the 12th house. This is going to be a lot of very strong battles, obviously, within the mind. Mercury in Scorpio in the 12th, I think, is going to have probably the strongest kind of aversion to dark topics, to mental health issues, to trauma. They're going to be very, very deeply involved because you're putting the communicator, or the planet of communication, you're putting that planet into the house related to the collective subconscious, and in the sign related to the collective shadow. So there's a lot of fears, a lot of anxiety, a lot of overwhelm. It's like the collective fears in that way. Very strong, very much something that need to be really worked through on a very deep psychological level. You can be extremely powerful psychoanalytical people with Mercury and Scorpio in the 12th. Mercury in Aries in the 12th, this one is obviously another Martian sign, so there is going to be some sense of conflict, some sense of difficulty with that, communicating your truth, specifically yours, knowing how to have a conflict, how to fight for something, how to fight with anger. There's some angry communication here for sure. There's some passionate communication, motivational speaking. There could be some sense of being great at motivating others with your words, but not great at motivating yourself. There's kind of a blind spot there in that way. Mercury in a Venus ruled sign. So obviously I want to also preface this by saying go watch the Mercury video of your particular sign first before you watch the Mercury house placement, because that's going to give you a lot more context than this little portion would ever give. Now we also have Mercury in Venus ruled signs. So Mercury in Taurus or Libra. These ones aren't as difficult. Mercury in Taurus is your chart ruler, so there's going to be some importance here. Because it is yourself being brought into the 12th house, trying to create harmony, trying to create peace, trying to find your value of your words in your own speech. There's a level of interesting like speech therapy, throat therapy. There's definitely some throat chakra related healing for this one. Needing to know the value of what you're saying is really important, and it comes from stuff that people can't see. So you have a lot of value and a lot of value to bring to something. You can make a lot of money through speaking. You could write a lot of really great books of topics people don't understand, but it's about really making it digestible and taking the time to figure that out. Mercury in Taurus in the 12th is an interesting one, because once again, it's your chart ruler. So there's a level of really powerful importance for you to put yourself through difficulty, mental health issues, see the value of your survival. That's true for Mercury and Aries and Scorpio as well, but Mercury in Taurus in the 12th has a sense of there's value in your mind that you don't see yet, and you'll see it over time as you see your own value. And your value is way more than just your mind in this way, obviously, with Gemini rising, Mercury in the 12th in Taurus. But you have a lot more value than just your opinion, but that is a really big, important portion for you specifically to know how to communicate subtle things that aren't really talked about, aren't really seen in that way. Mercury in Libra in the 12th. This one obviously has some very interesting relational hangups, communicative hangups, very difficult conversational confusion things happening, not really able to communicate clearly on what it is that you're relationally kind of wanting, and how to communicate with someone is very much, there's some weirdness there. It's like you're meant to learn how to communicate with someone else. That's part of your mission. But at the same time, you're getting lost in their stuff and not being able to discern. But the thing about Mercury Libra I think is actually really helpful for this one is it's a little bit easier to discern when it's just a one-on-one type of thing with Mercury and Libra versus Mercury and other signs, where you're able to know where the line is and know where someone else's opinion is affecting yours or vice versa, and how to kind of divide that. Because although Libra is about balance and about harmony, it is also about division and you with someone else in comparison and contrasting. So there's a lot of really strong ability with that. Very good relational kind of counselors in that way. Very good spiritual advisors in that way as well. Interesting, there's interesting art stuff related to these two as well. Then we have Mercury in its own sign, so Mercury in Gemini or in Virgo in the 12th house. These are both obviously powerful here. They're going to protect this house in some way, shape, or form. So you have angels on your side in some way. And your mind is a lot more protected and guided most directly by spirit, versus other people with Mercury in the 12th. They might need to lose their connection or lose their spark or their line of purity, I guess, within their mind, to the highest truth. They're going to lose that in some way, shape, or form. But Mercury in its own sign isn't as easily going to lose that connection. They can still lose it, but they're more quicker to regain their mental connection and their mental stability because of that just at-homeness that Mercury has in the 12th. There's a lot more communicative support around you in your dreams, in your spirit guides, around you just in your family and in your environment, that I think is, you know a little bit more where the lines are drawn in that way. Yeah, that's just a lot of gifts there with Mercury in its own sign in the 12th, but it can definitely have some stressors within the mind because it's such a strong Mercury in its own sign in the 12th, so it's even more so forcing you to communicate about things that are hidden from people in ways. It's funny. Then we have Mercury in the moon sign and in the sun sign here. So Mercury in the moon sign here in Cancer is going to have a level of sensitivity to it. There's a level of overwhelm with this one as well. Mercury in a water sign in general are going to have a lot of emotional overwhelm. Very sensitive to their family conversations, family psychic in some way. Very much psychic across the board as well. Mediumship, helping families heal, speaking about subtleties and ancestral lineage in that way. There's something there that I think is really cool. There's a lot of healing in your own emotional. The more you sit with your emotions, the more you dive into those, the more you're going to help find the right words for what you're feeling, what you're going through. That's the thing with Mercury in the 12th in Cancer. It's like, what are the right words? What am I feeling? How do I feel about this? How do I talk about this, right? And you'll figure it out. Mercury in the sun sign. So this is actually Mercury's other ruler. So this is going to be probably the harder one, I would say, than any of them, because it's Mercury in the 12th house in Leo, where I, in my own opinion, it doesn't really work that well. So it's you being placed in the 12th house where you're really focused on yourself, but that's not what the 12th house is really about. And it's all about everybody else and everybody's kind of collective shadow, collective connection to subconscious in a lot of ways. So Mercury in the 12th in Leo, you need to learn how to communicate true to you, which is important, but that's really hard to know what that is because there's so much of a overwhelm with everyone else's stuff and everyone else's subtleties and energies and nuances with their own environmental influences and their own spirit guides and their own things. And so there's a sense of really strong artistry with this one, I think, especially because it is your chart ruler. You could be a very strong artist, very much communicative about things that are not really spoken about. Watercolors could be great for you for art. Speaking in a way that is very self-focused, very artistic. I think that's going to be your biggest thing. Art therapy would be really, really big for these people. Art therapy, music therapy is probably biggest than any of them. And helping heal yourself to heal others, I think, is really important for this one. Helping heal your mind through art and through artistic expression, and that I think is going to be your biggest gift. I would lean that towards anyone that had this placement. And then Mercury in Jupiter ruled sign, so Mercury in my own sign in Sagittarius. So this one obviously has its own difficulty with it because it's both in its sign it doesn't like to be in, and it's also in a house it doesn't like to be in. So it really does struggle for me specifically. There's a sense of cultural kind of overwhelm. There's a gift for me as well where I have a lot of connection to different cultures in my mind, meaning I can speak many different languages. I've connected many different languages and cultures But by doing so, it actually made things more confusing for me and more confusing for other people to know what I was trying to say. But it's always about expanding your mind with Mercury in a Jupiter ruled sign. And in the 12th house, it's almost like explaining it too much without having much focus. And so it's like always wanting to be heard, always wanting to talk, always wanting to kind of communicate about something. And so it's a very difficult placement here for me as my own lived experience. Like I said, there's a lot here. There's a lot of teaching that you want to give to others with your mind. It's almost overwhelming. It's almost like you always want to learn, but you never want to, like, you always want to learn so you can teach, but never learn so you can learn more about yourself. And in a way, it's weird. It's a weird thing. It's like it likes to be heard, but not digested within itself. It's really a strange one. And obviously my Mercury in the 12th in Sag has its own difficulties, but also support. And it's the one part of my chart that for years I have always gone back to it as a point of confusion and contention, because there's so much within it that has been such a great gift. Obviously, I mean, I speak and teach for a living, and my voice is so valuable to me and to those around me, but it's something that I still get caught up on it, because it's almost like I feel like I'm not learning enough. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm not understanding enough. And it's funny because I was, and I still have it, you can catch it in some of my videos, but I used to have a stutter and I was in speech therapy. And that's true for Mercury in the 12th house. I think they have to learn how to speak in a slower way. For me specifically, I need to definitely learn how to slow my words down in some way, make it more digestible or condense it. And the thing for me is I tend to do this thing where I either speak about everything and anything and not know where the relevancy lies, or I minimize it and I take out things that are really relevant to the bigger picture. So it's not about seeing the bigger picture but not seeing the bigger picture at the same time, and like taking out things that are really relevant and not knowing that balance. So that's something that I've struggled with. But there's a lot of just larger stuff. Like I said, been in speech therapy when I was really young, and then now I'm a public speaker and teacher, which is so weird to think about. As I've regained my ability to speak, as I've regained my confidence in my own voice, there's a lot of gifts in the Mercury 12th house journey as you become more attuned and more aware of the subtleties of your own mind and your subconscious, because that's a really, 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 really big part of this is the subconscious, and knowing how to work with that, be aware of that. Like I had said in the previous portion with Mercury and Pisces, about an awareness of the connection to projection and connection to media, connection to things that you're seeing and that you're perceiving, and media that you're watching, and seeing how that can identify with you and that can connect with you, but knowing how you are projecting upon that and how there's a separateness. So there's a lot of healing that can be done through video games, through media, through music, through TV shows, those sorts of things. There's a sense of identification that happens with the subconscious Mercury in the 12th house, where it allows you to get overly invested, overly connected to an idea, but to a degree it can be dangerous, obviously, if you get too over-identified with a specific form of media and not identified with yourself, not identified with what your voice, what your opinion is, and lose your voice to that truth, lose your voice to that reality, because Mercury in the 12th can very much do that. Mercury in the Pisces, like Mercury and Pisces, I've already talked about that. It's funny, the Mercury is very much large, and it's just talking a lot, talking too much, and I almost think too fast. I think faster than I can speak, which is kind of frustrating, and I hate that, something. And so Mercury and Pisces in the 12th, there's a lot of overwhelm here as well. Kind of everything that I've talked in this video is about you. There's a lot of power in this one, but it really is kind of, there's so much layers to this one in specific that is so much deeper, because it really does, it's really about an importance about bringing you into things that you're not aware of and utilizing that to teach people. It's very powerful with this one. And it creates a lot of artistic ability. Everything I've talked about in this video really can pertain to you. And it's funny because Mercury and Pisces in the 12th might really connect to everything within this video that I've talked about, which is such a Mercury Pisces 12th house thing to do. Like connect to every kind of concept and resonate with every single kind of concept and not really discern what is theirs, what is not. There's a level of lack of boundaries with the mind with Mercury in the 12th, and in Pisces it's doubled up on that. So, and then finally Mercury and Saturn world signs, Mercury in Capricorn, Mercury in Aquarius. These are going to be the obviously business ones, the ones that are a little bit stronger in ways of communication, the ones that are a little bit more patient with their mind, and they have to be more patient with their mind, and people need to be patient with them as well. There's a level of mental stress, mental difficulty that Mercury has in Capricorn and Aquarius. Mercury Aquarius is such an interesting one to me because it is, in my opinion, exalted here in the 12th. So there is a sense of like really knowing how to kind of fact check your opinion through an audience in some way. There's an ability to connect to the collective subconscious and the collective thoughts around that and be able to differentiate those things. There's a level of really deep group therapy healing you can do with this one, which I think is really speaks to the power of Mercury in Aquarius as well. Like, when I think about Mercury in Aquarius in the 12th, it's like almost the quintessential like group therapist running AA groups, running healing groups, and being able to hear everybody's opinion and help them through that process and connect to them very subtly in different ways and very much make it a part of a bigger picture, make it relatable to the audience. And that's, once again, another reason as to why I think Mercury exalts in Aquarius, because in the 12th, it's even there. I think it can create such healing so long as it doesn't get too caught up in everybody else's opinions, which it can do. It can get caught up with too many trends and get too identified with too many trends and yada, 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 as Mercury does in Aquarius. But watch that video for sure. And then Mercury in Capricorn, this one obviously has a little bit more of a struggle because it's meant to be patient. There's an authoritative quality to this. This is really strong for exorcists and people that are communicating with difficult, dark issues, difficult, dark things. So you could see people working in jails, prisons, hospitals, deep things, exorcisms, deep paranormal things as well. Mercury in the 12th. Mercury in Aquarius can also do this, where they teach groups about paranormal investigation, spiritual healing groups, spiritual healing businesses. There's a lot there with Mercury in the 12th and Capricorn. Yeah, and Aquarius. They're both really strong there. Mercury really wants to create. The thing I like about Mercury in Capricorn Aquarius in the 12th, there's a Saturnian aspect to that, where it's going to create boundaries organically. And so there's a sense of help that I think Mercury and Capricorn and Aquarius give to it being in the 12th, where they're able to create a sense of a container for all the minds, all of the thoughts, all the opinions and voices and things that it's hearing and the perspectives, and being able to kind of make it more digestible, digest it by itself alone, and be able to help regurgitate that or help guide other people through their mind and through their words and through what they've gathered, because Mercury in Capricorn and Aquarius kind of already gets that container in some way, because Mercury and Capricorn and Aquarius both need to have a Saturnian influence and a sense of rigidity. There could be a lot of anxiety for sure, a lot of overwhelm of feeling stupid, but you're not stupid in any way, shape, or form with Mercury in the 12th. And that's true for any Mercury in the 12th, not just Capricorn Aquarius. Like, there's so much power you have in that mind. It's just how you go about communicating that and knowing how to sit with that and trusting the message that you're trying to bring out. And it's interesting because Mercury for me is obviously there as well, and it's something that I've had to learn to trust that message, as I said earlier, and just let it come out. And these videos I make and the readings I've done for years, so many people have told me that the things I've said are they're so beautiful, they're so helpful, they're so healing. And I hope this video helps anyone and everyone in that same way. And I've just had to trust that everything I said in all of these videos have been helpful, have been healing in some way, because my intention is to do that. My intention is to allow the universe to speak through me, through the ability I have to recognize patterns within astrology and teach people those things. And I really love to be able to help people and teach people and help them learn more about themselves and give them those gifts and those skill sets. So I hope this helped you guys. If you have your Mercury in the 12th house, I'd love to hear about your story in so many different ways, because I just love talking and hearing people's stories. But then also look to your Mercury ruler as well. So if your Mercury is in a Saturn world sign, look to your Saturn. If your Mercury is in a Mars world sign, look to Mars, so on and so forth. It's gonna give you some more context. Ultimately, this video is like a huge series, and it's really up to you, whatever you want to do with it. See, I love what I do with astrology, and I really hope this video helped any of you understand more about your own perspectives in astrology and be able to give you some healing. Obviously, reach out to me down below if you're interested in anything with me. Look into more of your chart with me. Obviously, please comment, like, share, subscribe. All those things are going to help me. And I hope this video helped you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one, where we talk about more Pisces and 12th house placements. I love you, and I'll talk to you guys soon.